see what we can find. Yeah, we got lots to explore. What we got over here? Okay, Book of the Odyssey. The Siren in Greek myth. There we go. Book 12 of the Odyssey, translated by Alexander Pope. The Siren, Scylla, and Charybdis. An alluring lullaby, far more potent than our shore. Lanterns, if only I can make it sing. Next, the sirens dwells. You plow the seas. Their song is death and makes destruction please. Unblessed the man who music wins to stay nigh the cursed shore and listen to the lay. No more that wretch shall view the joys of life, his blooming offspring, or his beauteous wife. In verdant meads they sport, and wide around lie human bones that whiten all the ground. The ground polluted floats with human gore, and human carnage taints the dreadful shore. As God made the victuals, the devil made the cook. Fly swift the dangerous coast, let every ear be stopped against the song, 'tis death to hear. Firm to the mast with chains thyself be bound, nor trust thy virtue to the enchanting sound. If mad with transport, freedom thou demand, be every fetter strained and added band to band. What better way to start this video off than a transcript from Homer's Odyssey that appears in the video game Maid of Sker. Now, I really love this game and cannot recommend it enough. Before we get started, there will be minor spoilers to visuals, graphics of the game, and some plot points. However, I won't be covering the entire plot from start to finish, leaving a lot of it more open in case you do wish to play this game. Now, I'm an absolute sucker for indie games, especially indie games that have an emphasis or inspiration on folklore, mythology, and fairy tales. Maid of Sker is ripe with that. Now, apologies ahead of time for any mispronunciations. I'm trying my best, but a lot of Welsh words are very tricky to pronounce. Maid of Sker was a 2020 first-person survival horror game developed and published by Wales Interactive. This was a game that came out in the middle of a pandemic, and it's one that I absolutely fell in love with. What I wanted to talk about today was just how beautiful and stunning this game is, and hopefully inspire more people to pick up on it. And if you have played the game, hopefully I'll be able to point out some really interesting facts and inspirations that you may not know about this game. Now, Maid of Sker is a title of a 3-volume novel written by R.D. Blackmore. This was a novel published in 1872. While the plot does not follow the video game, this is still a famous Welsh story that clearly was no mistake in having reference in terms of name. The game itself follows Thomas as he receives a mysterious letter in regards to his wife Elizabeth and her family home. He goes there and encounters some very terrifying creatures known as the Quiet Ones. This is a game that has very little ways to fight back against your enemies, mostly ways to essentially avoid them and sneak around them. It's a visually striking game and one with a truly beautiful soundtrack. Now, right off the bat, I do want to talk about the environment design and the just visual artisticness of this game. And it has a truly interesting little art render that I honestly lost my mind over. Now, in the lobby of the Sker Hotel is a rendition of the famous statue by the sculptor Jean-Baptiste Carpeaux, who is French, of Count Ugolino and his sons. Now, if you don't know this story, this comes actually from Dante's Inferno. Count Ugolino is condemned to hell for the sin of cannibalism. Trapped in a tower with his sons with no food, they begged him to eat them in order to survive. However, despite it essentially being consensual, he was still cast down to hell for that sin of committing cannibalism, forever gnawing on the skull of his captor. It's a truly stunning piece of artwork, and one that I actually was genuinely excited to see right off the bat in this game. And this statue highlights one of the main, if not the most important theme of the game, which is imprisonment. Count Ugolino did something desperate out of imprisonment. And that theme carries through the entire game. However, we are going to put a pin in that particular theme. To sum up the environment design, it has several scary moments with, an occasional jump scare, but is just haunting right off the bat. The decrepit, neglected hotel that you arrive to immediately gives you a feeling of unease at the start of the game. And the music, once again, follows that haunting theme and has some truly stunning operatic vocals. And again, I'm going to say the word haunting again. It forever haunts me that I just cannot get my hands on the vinyl record copy of the soundtrack of this game. I have been trying ever since the game came out to try and get a copy of the soundtrack on vinyl. Please. Oh my gosh. If anybody knows how I can get my hands on a copy to be sent to the US, or Wales Interactive, if y'all listening to this, hook a girl up. Just gonna beg here for a moment on that. Now, the quiet ones fall under the very specific fears that arise in us naturally when we cannot see the face of a human-esque creature. It's part of what makes the xenomorph from Alien so effective, among many reasons, because you can't see eyes. It's part of what made Slenderman initially frightening when those first photoshopped images arrived of him. The sounds that they make as they're walking around, potentially searching for you, truly make a tense experience. And adding a mechanic of the game where the main character has to hold his breath in order to remain quiet to get past them just further adds to it. Before we start talking about the mythologies in the game, I do want to just highlight two fantastic characters. First off, you can pet the doggo. Anytime you can pet a dog in a game, always fantastic. But my favorite character of the game is Elizabeth. She has a wonderful character design, a costume that frankly I want to make at some point. Her voice acting is lovely. She is essentially the point of the plot. Now, it's not uncommon, especially in a horror game. You have a man going to search to save his wife, and that's there, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't mind it. Now, I do appreciate that there are multiple endings of the game, including one where she betrays Thomas, essentially falling victim to the cage that she was trapped in. Elizabeth is one of two prisoners in this story, a singing bird trapped in a cage, and one that I particularly enjoyed listening to over the phone. I thought her voice acting was quite lovely, and I cared about her. I really wanted to save her and uncover the mysteries of this island and then this hotel. It's hard sometimes with games to create the sense of urgency or a desire to rescue a character and form essentially an emotional bond. And having her at multiple times capable of speaking to her husband, the player character Thomas, certainly added to it, and I looked forward to hearing the phone ring. Cringing, of course, worrying that an enemy might find me, but I did look forward to hearing more from her, reading diaries, and uncovering more about her family and what terrible fate they tried to force upon her. Now, we're probably going to start getting more and more into the spoiler territory, while I essentially am now going to hit the main meat of this video, talking about the presence of the Welsh mythology and folklore, as well as others, mixed in and interwoven into this game. Now, there are undertones of several famous Welsh stories that are woven into this game. Now, once again, apologies for all mispronunciations. I struggle with Welsh and Gaelic pronunciations of any kind, despite being Irish myself. Now, the first story I do want to talk about is the story of Bronwyn. This is a story that has a house where 100 bags are hung, thought to be filled with flour, but the plot twist is that they actually contain an army. Now, this isn't exactly a huge plot point of the game, but it is an element. At one point, you do walk through hanging bags of bodies. And that's something that I really do like about this game. Just like the statue of Count Ugolino, the inspirations that they take, not just from Welsh mythology, but from Dante's Inferno and Greek mythology, are subtle. Now, you can't deny that a piece of a famous Welsh story, essentially an important element, popping up in a point in an environment in the game, coincidence? Maybe, maybe not, but something that I found very interesting during my research. A lot of Welsh stories contain magical wars, messed up or manipulated families, along with tragic romances, quests in the name of love or romance, which is a lot of what this game is. Maybe not necessarily in the magical wars, but more or less magic involved. Just totally dysfunctional families. Oh my goodness, this family of the Sker Hotel. Huh, y'all got problems. And tragic romances, and essentially a classic hero story a la Joseph Campbell, Hero of a Thousand Faces, call to action to save a loved one. It fits in line with several elements and plot beats that are typical of a Welsh story. Another famous one is Lud and Leffelys. I'm trying. These Lud and Leffelys, So in this story, Lud asks Leffelys for help by speaking through a brass tube that the enemy, the Coraniad, demonic people who can hear everything, cannot hear. That is, once again, coming back to Elizabeth and Thomas, is one of the main ways of driving the plot and directing the player. And again, a Coraniad, goodness. I'm keeping in my verbal struggles in this video cut. You're gonna hear, I'm trying. But this demonic people that can hear everything, more or less, are the quiet ones. While Maid of Sker, the video game, is not a direct ripoff of a specific Welsh story, the fact that it contains so many elements, basic plot beats, themes, and in the case of Lud and Leffelys, a core enemy and method of communication is truly lovely. It feels like an homage to Welsh stories. Now, here's where we're going to get really, really spoilery. Now, if you don't want to hear the one major plot twist that I'm going to speak about in this video, go ahead and skip to the timestamp that I'm going to be listing it below, and I'll see you in a moment. Going back to that theme of a prisoner, and you know how I mentioned that there are two prisoners on that island, Elizabeth and somebody else, another caged bird singing? That prisoner is a siren. Now, I'm not talking what modern thoughts of the word siren are. A mermaid, lures and sings sailors to their doom. Well, yes, the traditional and original take on siren lures sailors to their doom through their song. The original siren was a bird with the head of a woman, classically portrayed in Homer's Odyssey. Now, this is one of the most well-known sequences of the Odyssey / the Iliad, next to Circe and the Cyclops. And if you aren't aware of that story, essentially the tale goes that there are legends of these sirens who have the most alluring song. However, whenever a sailor were to hear them, he would jump off ship and essentially drown. These women specifically lure men to their death. It's a classic story most people know. And Odysseus, just ever being the guy's guy, is desperate to hear that song. So, while all of the other sailors plug up their ears to prevent themselves from being swayed by these women, Odysseus commands his men to tie him to the mast of the ship, and no matter how much he begs to be let go, keep him tied down, so that way he can hear the song without harming himself. Now, the big plot twist of the game is, surprise! The family of the Sker Hotel had trapped a siren long, long ago, used her to lure ships to crash, and then would collect the riches from those wrecks. And Elizabeth, a bird in a cage, was taught the siren's song. The two of them are fantastic parallels of each other and both victims, and really, really are the point of the story. These birds in a cage that you are coming to rescue, and through your choices in the game, you can either help them or be the problem that corrupts them. While yes, I do love the modern / just traditional take on sirens where they are mermaids, I'm so happy that they went with the original traditional Greek / Roman / Odyssey take of this creature. I mean, a literal bird in a cage. Yeah, it's hard not to hammer that home. Alright, welcome back. No longer talking about spoilers. The point I'm making with this video is just how truly subtle and lovely this game is. While yes, I do love video games that really, really are obvious about its influences of mythology and classical stories like Okami or Apotheon, there's something to be said about something that's subtle. I really wanted to make this video to talk about these subtleties because I feel like it is so often lost if you don't know these inspirations, which is an absolute shame. And I hope that this video inspired you, if you haven't played this game, to look into it. And good news for those that are absolute babies with horror, there are several difficulty settings, so if you do struggle through horror games, there are still ways to play this without absolutely struggling the whole time, which is fantastic. I love it when game devs have difficulty settings, especially when it comes to horror, to ensure that everybody can enjoy it. And if you have played this game, I hope that this gave you some extra, just tiny little insight for such a short little video, but just even more of an appreciation for such a lovely piece of art. Now, I technically could go for hours about the sceneries and the music, but I mostly wanted to focus on the inspirations that this game took. This is a game that hooked me from the first 5 minutes and has not left my brain. I mean, yes, 2 years later, and I'm making a YouTube video about this, and I'm still trying to get around to cosplaying Elizabeth. Yeah, I don't think this game will ever leave my brain. It's often one of the first games I recommend to people who are looking for indie horror games or stuff that has a historical or mythological influence to it, it's good. It's a good game, not just for an indie, but just a game overall. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. And I hope to see you guys for more videos where I just be incredibly self-indulgent and gush about some of my favorite games. And maybe I'll see you guys for some of my Twitch streams. Take care, my dears. Take care, my darlings. And let me know what you think of this game and its influences, and if there's any game you want me to specifically talk about. Hope to see you next time. Bye!